The conference room at Kodak's Rochester headquarters held the familiar atmosphere of quarterly planning meetings that had driven the company's growth for over a century. In December 1975, research engineer Steven Sasson placed a device the size of a toaster on the conference table. Executives examined the prototype with the methodical attention they applied to all technical presentations. The machine weighed 8 pounds and contained a charge-coupled device, digital tape cassette, and viewfinder assembled from television components. Sasson explained that his invention could capture images without film, storing them digitally for display on a television screen. The demonstration took 23 seconds to record a single black and white image at a resolution of 0.01 megapixels. Senior management acknowledged the technical achievement while noting obvious limitations in image quality and processing speed. The meeting concluded with standard procedures for documenting research developments and assessing commercial potential. Eastman Kodak Company occupied a position of extraordinary market dominance in 1975, controlling approximately 70% of the United States film market and generating annual revenues exceeding $4 billion. The company's integrated business model captured value at multiple stages of the photographic process, from manufacturing film and cameras to processing and printing services. Kodak's Rochester facilities employed over 60,000 workers, while international operations extended the company's reach across global markets. The corporate structure reflected decades of successful expansion built on consistent technological innovation and market leadership. The company's research laboratories had produced breakthrough developments since the early 1900s, establishing Kodak as the definitive authority on photographic technology. Corporate scientists held thousands of patents covering chemical processes, optical systems, and manufacturing techniques. The research division operated with substantial budgets and minimal interference from commercial pressures, allowing engineers to pursue long-term technical projects without immediate revenue requirements. Kodak's business model generated exceptional profit margins through the integrated sale of cameras, film, and processing services. The company employed a razor and blade strategy, selling cameras at modest profits while generating substantial revenues from ongoing film sales and processing fees. Consumer photography had become a mass-market phenomenon, with American families purchasing billions of exposures annually for documenting personal experiences and special occasions. The company's management structure reflected the methodical approach that had sustained growth throughout the 20th century. Executive decision-making emphasized careful analysis of market data, competitive positioning, and technological feasibility. Kodak's leadership team included engineers and scientists who understood the technical complexities of photographic processes, combined with business executives who possessed deep knowledge of consumer markets and distribution networks. International expansion had established Kodak as a global corporation, with manufacturing facilities, research centers, and marketing operations across multiple continents. The company's brand recognition achieved nearly universal awareness in developed markets, while emerging economies represented substantial growth opportunities. Kodak's scale advantages in manufacturing and research created significant barriers to entry for potential competitors seeking to challenge the company's market position. The foundation of assumption. Steven Sasson's digital camera prototype emerged from Kodak's ongoing research into charge-coupled device technology, originally developed for applications in astronomy and industrial imaging. The company had acquired CCD expertise through partnerships with other technology firms and viewed digital sensors as potentially useful for specialized applications requiring immediate image review or electronic transmission. The research division approached digital imaging as one of several technological avenues worth investigating for future commercial possibilities. The prototype's limitations appeared substantial from a commercial perspective. Image quality fell far below the resolution and color accuracy that consumers expected from photographic prints. The device required expensive electronic components that would result in retail prices significantly higher than conventional cameras. Processing and storage capabilities demanded additional equipment that would complicate the user experience and increase total system costs. Kodak's management evaluated digital imaging within the context of established consumer preferences and market dynamics. Photographic prints provided tangible products that consumers could display, share, and preserve in photo albums. The social aspects of photography involved physical prints that could be easily distributed to family members and friends. Digital images lacked the permanence and convenience of traditional photographs, requiring complex electronic systems for viewing and reproduction. The company's research team recognized that digital imaging technology would improve over time, following the trajectory of other electronic innovations that had emerged from laboratory environments. However, the timeline for achieving commercial viability appeared to extend far into the future, possibly requiring decades of development before digital systems could match the quality and convenience of film-based photography. This assessment influenced resource allocation decisions and strategic planning discussions. Kodak's film business generated extraordinary returns on investment, with established manufacturing processes, efficient distribution networks, and loyal consumer bases. The company's management calculated that digital imaging posed a distant threat that would not materialize for many years, providing ample time to develop competitive responses when technological and market conditions warranted such investments. Kodak's leadership team examined Sasson's digital camera within established frameworks for evaluating technological innovations and market opportunities. The company operated sophisticated systems for analyzing consumer preferences, competitive threats, and technological trends. These analytical processes had successfully guided Kodak through previous industry transitions and technological challenges over many decades. Senior executives acknowledged that digital imaging represented a potentially disruptive technology that could eventually affect the photographic industry. However, the immediate implications appeared limited due to technological constraints and consumer preferences that strongly favored traditional photographic products. The company's strategic planning process incorporated digital imaging as a long-term consideration while maintaining focus on current market opportunities and competitive challenges. Kodak's research division received authorization to continue developing digital imaging technology, but without the priority and resources devoted to improvements in film-based systems. The company allocated modest budgets to digital research while directing primary attention toward enhancing conventional photographic processes. This resource allocation reflected management's assessment that film technology still offered substantial opportunities for innovation and market expansion. The decision to limit commercial emphasis on digital imaging aligned with Kodak's business model and market position. The company's profitability depended heavily on film sales and processing services, which generated recurring revenues from existing customer relationships. Aggressive development of digital imaging could accelerate the transition away from film-based photography, potentially damaging Kodak's most profitable business segments before alternative revenue sources had matured. Corporate culture at Kodak emphasized methodical development and market testing before introducing new products. The company's historical success had resulted from careful attention to product quality, manufacturing efficiency, and consumer acceptance. Digital imaging technology appeared to require rushed development timelines and acceptance of lower quality standards that conflicted with Kodak's established approach to product development. Consumer photography markets in the 1970s and 1980s demonstrated strong growth trajectories and expanding international opportunities that supported Kodak's strategic focus on film-based technologies. The company introduced successful product innovations, including instant cameras, improved film stocks, and automated processing equipment that enhanced convenience and image quality. These developments reinforced consumer commitment to traditional photography, while generating substantial revenue increases. Kodak's competitive position remained strong throughout the 1980s, despite challenges from Japanese manufacturers in camera production and European companies in specialized film markets. The company's integrated business model and technological expertise enabled effective responses to competitive pressures while maintaining market leadership. Management viewed digital imaging as one of many technological developments that required monitoring, but did not pose immediate threats to core business operations. The company's international expansion continued successfully, with emerging markets providing substantial growth opportunities for film-based photography products. Economic development in Asia, Latin America, and other regions created expanding middle-class populations with increasing disposable income for consumer photography. These market dynamics supported continued investment in film manufacturing capacity and distribution networks. Kodak's professional and industrial imaging businesses also generated significant revenues and profits through specialized applications in medical imaging, scientific research, and commercial printing. The company's technological leadership in these segments appeared secure, with digital alternatives still requiring substantial development before achieving comparable performance levels. Professional markets valued image quality and reliability over convenience factors that might favor digital systems in consumer applications. The broader technology industry was beginning to develop personal computers, electronic consumer products, and digital communication systems that would eventually create infrastructure supporting digital imaging. However, these developments remained primarily in industrial and specialized applications during the 1980s, with limited impact on consumer markets or photographic industry dynamics. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Kodak's management refined their assessment of digital imaging technology while maintaining strategic emphasis on film-based businesses. The company tracked technological developments at competitors, monitored patent filings in digital imaging, and maintained research programs investigating electronic alternatives to traditional photography. This information gathering supported periodic strategy reviews and resource allocation decisions. Digital imaging technology improved steadily, but remained limited by cost factors, image quality constraints, and infrastructure requirements that restricted commercial applications. Professional digital cameras commanded extremely high prices while delivering image quality inferior to film-based systems. Consumer electronics companies began developing digital products, but focused primarily on video applications rather than still photography markets. Kodak's financial performance during this period reinforced management confidence in their strategic approach. The company achieved record revenues and profits, expanded international market share, and successfully introduced new products that enhanced competitive positioning. Film sales continued growing in both domestic and international markets, while processing services generated steady cash flows that funded research and development activities. The company's analysis suggested that digital imaging would eventually become commercially viable, but the transition timeline appeared to extend well into the future. Management calculated that Kodak possessed sufficient technological expertise and financial resources to develop competitive digital products when market conditions justified such investments. This assessment supported continued focus on film-based businesses while maintaining modest digital research programs. Kodak also evaluated the potential impact of premature digital imaging development on their existing business relationships. The company's retail partnerships, processing laboratories, and supply chain relationships were structured around film-based products. Aggressive promotion of digital alternatives could disrupt these relationships and reduce cooperation from business partners who depended on film-related revenues for their own profitability. Japanese electronics manufacturers began introducing consumer digital cameras in the mid-1990s, primarily targeting early adopters and technology enthusiasts willing to accept limited image quality in exchange for electronic convenience. These products required substantial consumer education about digital workflow processes, image storage systems, and output options that differed fundamentally from traditional photography practices. Kodak observed these market developments while maintaining their assessment that digital imaging remained a niche application unsuitable for mainstream consumer photography. The company's research indicated that digital cameras required significant improvements in image quality, battery life, and user interface design before achieving broad market acceptance. Cost factors also limited digital camera sales to affluent consumers and professional applications. The company's competitive response focused on incremental improvements to film-based systems and development of hybrid products that combined traditional photography with digital convenience features. Kodak introduced cameras with digital displays, electronic flash systems, and automated exposure controls that enhanced user experience while maintaining dependence on film-based image capture. These products attempted to provide digital benefits while preserving the company's core business model. Sony, Canon, Nikon, and other electronics manufacturers continued investing heavily in digital imaging technology, viewing the photographic market as an extension of their existing consumer electronics businesses. These companies possessed expertise in electronic systems, semiconductor manufacturing, and digital processing that complemented digital imaging requirements. Their business models did not depend on film-related revenues, enabling more aggressive development of film replacement technologies. Personal computer adoption accelerated during the 1990s, creating infrastructure that supported digital imaging workflows. Software applications for image editing, storage, and sharing began addressing consumer needs that digital cameras could serve. Internet development provided additional distribution mechanisms for digital images that eliminated requirements for physical prints in many applications. By the late 1990s, digital camera image quality had improved substantially, while prices decreased to levels approaching consumer affordability. Kodak's management recognized that digital imaging technology was approaching commercial viability faster than their earlier projections had anticipated. The company initiated strategic reviews to assess competitive positioning and develop responses to changing market conditions. Kodak launched digital camera product lines and invested in electronic imaging capabilities, but these efforts faced internal conflicts with established film-based businesses. The company's sales organization had limited incentive to promote digital products that reduced film consumption. Retail partners expressed concerns about digital products that eliminated profitable processing services and film sales. Marketing messages attempted to position digital cameras as complementary to traditional photography, rather than replacement technologies. The company's digital imaging strategy reflected compromise approaches that attempted to preserve film-based revenue streams while developing electronic capabilities. Kodak promoted hybrid workflows that combined digital capture with traditional printing services. The company invested in digital printing equipment and processing facilities designed to generate revenue from consumers who captured images digitally but desired physical prints. However, digital imaging technology continued improving at rates that exceeded Kodak's adaptation capabilities. Consumer preferences began shifting toward digital cameras as image quality reached acceptable levels and prices declined to mass market ranges. The convenience factors that Kodak's management had underestimated proved more influential than anticipated, particularly among younger consumers who were comfortable with electronic devices and digital workflows. Kodak's financial performance began reflecting the impact of declining film sales as digital camera adoption accelerated. The company's stock price declined as investors recognized that digital imaging posed fundamental threats to Kodak's business model, rather than simply representing additional product opportunities. Revenue and profit margins decreased as film consumption declined faster than digital product sales could offset traditional photography revenues. Digital camera adoption reached mass market levels in the early 2000s, driven by continued improvements in image quality, declining prices, and expanding infrastructure for digital image management. Consumer electronics retailers allocated increasing shelf space to digital cameras while reducing film-related product displays. Photography magazines and advertising began emphasizing digital products and techniques rather than traditional film-based approaches. Kodak's attempts to compete in digital markets faced challenges from their historical business model and corporate structure. The company lacked expertise in semiconductor manufacturing, electronic systems design, and digital software development that were essential for competitive digital products. Partnerships with technology companies provided some capabilities, but resulted in shared revenues and reduced control over product development and marketing. The company's cost structure, designed around high-margin film manufacturing and processing services, proved unsuitable for digital camera markets characterized by rapid technological change and competitive pricing pressures. Kodak's manufacturing facilities, distribution networks, and employment levels reflected the requirements of chemical-based photographic processes rather than electronic product development and marketing. Film sales declined precipitously as consumers adopted digital cameras for most photographic applications. Professional photographers, who had been among the strongest supporters of film-based systems, began transitioning to digital equipment that offered immediate image review, electronic transmission capabilities, and reduced operating costs. Even casual consumers discovered that digital photography eliminated ongoing film and processing expenses while providing enhanced convenience. Kodak implemented cost reduction programs, facility closures, and workforce reductions in response to declining revenues from traditional photography businesses. The company's financial position deteriorated as digital product revenues failed to offset losses from film-related operations. Competitive pressures in digital markets prevented Kodak from achieving the profit margins that had sustained the company's growth for decades. The fundamental conflict between Kodak's established business model and digital imaging technology became increasingly apparent as market transitions accelerated. The company's profitability had depended on recurring film sales and processing revenues that digital photography eliminated entirely. Digital cameras represented one-time purchases that generated limited ongoing revenue streams, fundamentally altering the economics of the photographic industry. Kodak's attempts to preserve film-based revenues through hybrid strategies proved unsuccessful, as consumer preferences shifted decisively toward purely digital workflows. The company promoted digital cameras with reduced image storage capacity, encouraging consumers to print images frequently. Marketing campaigns emphasized the importance of physical prints for preserving family memories. These approaches failed to prevent the decline of film consumption and processing services. The company's international operations faced similar challenges as digital camera adoption spread globally. Emerging markets that had represented growth opportunities for film-based photography began adopting digital technologies without extensive transitions through traditional photography systems. Mobile phone cameras, introduced in the early 2000s, provided additional digital imaging options that bypassed conventional camera markets entirely. Kodak's research and development capabilities, while substantial, were oriented toward chemical and optical technologies rather than the electronic systems and software applications that defined digital imaging markets. The company's patent portfolio, accumulated over decades of film-based innovation, provided limited competitive advantages in digital markets dominated by semiconductor and software technologies. The corporate culture at Kodak, which had emphasized methodical development and quality control appropriate for chemical manufacturing processes, proved unsuitable for digital markets requiring rapid product cycles and continuous technological innovation. The company's decision-making processes, designed for long-term planning and incremental improvement, could not respond effectively to the accelerating pace of digital technology development. Kodak's financial performance deteriorated rapidly as film sales collapsed and digital product revenues failed to achieve profitability. The company's stock price declined from peaks above $90 per share in the 1990s to single-digit levels by the late 2000s. Credit ratings agencies downgraded Kodak's debt securities, reflecting concerns about the company's ability to service financial obligations while restructuring operations. The company implemented increasingly aggressive cost reduction programs, including facility closures, workforce reductions, and divestiture of non-core business segments. Research and development spending decreased as resources were allocated to immediate operational needs rather than long-term technological development. These measures provided temporary financial relief, but further reduced Kodak's competitive capabilities in digital markets. Kodak's pension and healthcare obligations, accumulated during decades of high employment levels, became significant financial burdens as revenues declined and workforce reductions continued. The company's manufacturing facilities, designed for chemical processing operations, required substantial investments to adapt for different production applications. Many locations proved unsuitable for alternative uses and were closed permanently. The broader photographic industry experienced similar disruptions as film consumption declined globally. Processing laboratories, camera manufacturers, and retail outlets that had depended on film-related revenues faced comparable financial challenges. However, companies without Kodak's dependence on film-based business models were better positioned to adapt to digital markets. Kodak's management explored various strategic alternatives, including partnerships, acquisitions, and business model innovations designed to generate revenues from digital imaging markets. The company developed printing services, image storage systems, and software applications intended to capture value from digital photography workflows. These efforts achieved limited success due to intense competition from technology companies and changing consumer preferences. In January 2012, Eastman Kodak Company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, acknowledging that the company could no longer service its financial obligations while restructuring operations to compete effectively in digital markets. The bankruptcy filing represented the culmination of a decade-long decline that transformed one of America's most recognizable corporations into a case study of technological disruption and strategic miscalculation. The bankruptcy proceedings revealed the extent of Kodak's financial challenges, including approximately $6.8 billion in debt, unfunded pension obligations exceeding $2.8 billion, and ongoing operating losses that exceeded $1 billion annually. The company's asset values had declined substantially due to the obsolescence of film-related manufacturing facilities and the limited value of intellectual property in rapidly changing digital markets. Kodak's reorganization plan involved selling patent portfolios, closing manufacturing facilities, and eliminating tens of thousands of jobs while focusing on commercial printing and imaging applications. The company emerged from bankruptcy in 2013 as a much smaller organization with revenues below $2 billion annually, compared to peak revenues exceeding $16 billion during the film era. The human cost of Kodak's decline extended far beyond corporate financial losses. The company's Rochester headquarters had employed over 60,000 workers at peak levels, supporting a regional economy built around photographic manufacturing and research activities. Workforce reductions eliminated most of these positions, contributing to economic decline in upstate New York communities that had depended on Kodak's operations for generations. Kodak's bankruptcy also affected thousands of retirees who had worked for the company during its growth decades. Pension benefits were reduced as part of the reorganization process, while healthcare obligations were transferred to government programs. Former employees who had expected secure retirements based on Kodak's historical financial strength faced reduced benefits and uncertain futures. The irony of Kodak's decline centered on the company's role in developing the digital imaging technology that ultimately displaced its core businesses. Steven Sasson's 1975 prototype represented one of the earliest demonstrations of practical digital photography, while Kodak's research laboratories continued advancing electronic imaging capabilities throughout the following decades. The company accumulated substantial patent portfolios in digital imaging technology that were sold during bankruptcy proceedings to generate funds for reorganization. Kodak's digital imaging patents were eventually acquired by technology companies and patent licensing organizations that recognized their commercial value. The sale generated approximately $525 million for Kodak's creditors, representing a fraction of the company's historical investment in research and development activities. The patents found applications in smartphones, digital cameras, and other electronic devices that had displaced Kodak's film-based products. The company's research contributions extended beyond basic digital imaging technology to include innovations in image sensors, compression algorithms, and color processing systems that became standard elements in contemporary photography equipment. Kodak's scientists published extensively in technical journals and contributed to industry standards that defined digital imaging practices adopted globally. However, these technological contributions provided limited commercial benefit to Kodak due to the company's strategic decisions regarding digital imaging development and commercialization. The institutional knowledge and research capabilities that had sustained Kodak's growth for over a century were dispersed as employees left the company and research facilities were closed or repurposed. The broader implications of Kodak's experience extended beyond the photographic industry to other sectors facing technological disruption. The company's case became a standard example in business schools and management literature of how established corporations can fail to respond effectively to disruptive innovations, even when they possess superior technological capabilities and market resources. Contemporary technology companies studied Kodak's decline as they faced their own disruption challenges from emerging technologies and changing consumer preferences. The case highlighted the difficulty of transitioning from successful business models to new approaches that might initially appear inferior or unprofitable compared to existing operations. Management consultants and business academics analyzed Kodak's strategic decisions extensively, identifying multiple factors that contributed to the company's inability to capitalize on digital imaging technology despite its early technological leadership. The analysis revealed complex interactions between corporate culture, financial incentives, competitive dynamics, and technological change that made successful adaptation extremely challenging. Kodak's management faced genuine strategic dilemmas regarding digital imaging development. Aggressive promotion of digital cameras would accelerate the decline of highly profitable film businesses without guaranteeing success in competitive digital markets. The company lacked expertise in electronic systems and software development that were essential for digital imaging success, while partnerships with technology companies would share revenues and reduce control over product development. The company's financial structure, designed around recurring film revenues and high profit margins, could not easily adapt to digital camera markets characterized by lower margins, rapid product cycles, and substantial research and development requirements. Kodak's shareholders and financial analysts pressured management to maintain short-term profitability while investing in uncertain long-term digital opportunities. Competitive responses also influenced Kodak's strategic options. Japanese electronics manufacturers possessed advantages in semiconductor manufacturing, consumer electronics distribution, and electronic systems design that were difficult for Kodak to replicate. Technology companies entering digital imaging markets were not constrained by existing film-related business relationships and could pursue purely digital strategies. Consumer behavior patterns proved more adaptable to digital photography than Kodak's management had anticipated. The convenience factors associated with digital imaging, including immediate image review, electronic sharing, and elimination of processing costs, outweighed image quality limitations that were rapidly improving through technological development. Social and cultural changes also supported digital adoption as consumers became more comfortable with electronic devices and digital workflows. Kodak's experience with digital imaging technology continues to influence strategic planning and risk assessment processes across multiple industries facing technological disruption. The case demonstrates how technological innovation alone is insufficient for commercial success without appropriate business model adaptation and organizational change capabilities. The company's legacy extends beyond business strategy lessons to broader questions about innovation management, corporate governance, and stakeholder responsibilities during periods of technological transition. Kodak's shareholders, employees, customers, and communities all experienced significant impacts from strategic decisions made decades before consequences became apparent. The smartphone revolution, which occurred after Kodak's decline, provided additional validation of digital imaging technology adoption patterns. Mobile phone cameras achieved widespread consumer acceptance despite initially inferior image quality compared to dedicated cameras, following adoption patterns similar to those that displaced film-based photography. These developments suggested that Kodak's concerns about digital image quality had been misplaced relative to convenience and cost considerations. Contemporary discussions about artificial intelligence, renewable energy, autonomous vehicles, and other emerging technologies often reference Kodak's experience as an example of how established companies can miss transformative opportunities despite possessing relevant capabilities and resources. The case provides frameworks for analyzing strategic responses to potentially disruptive innovations. Kodak emerged from bankruptcy as a much smaller company focused on commercial printing and industrial imaging applications, markets where the company's expertise remained relevant, and digital technologies provided opportunities rather than threats. The reorganized company achieved stability at reduced scale, demonstrating possibilities for survival after fundamental business model transitions. The digital imaging market that displaced Kodak's film-based businesses continued evolving rapidly, with smartphone cameras eventually challenging dedicated digital camera markets through continued technological improvement and enhanced convenience. These developments illustrated the continuing nature of technological disruption and the challenges facing all companies in rapidly changing markets. Steven Sasson's 1975 digital camera prototype, initially viewed as an interesting technical achievement with limited commercial relevance, ultimately represented the beginning of a technological transition that transformed multiple industries and eliminated one of America's most successful corporations. The device now resides in the Smithsonian Institution as a symbol of innovation and industrial change.